1980 is the year my father passed away. He was shot in front of me, and it was probably the catalyst that put me on a particular journey. It was a feeling of being empty, a feeling of fear, of loneliness, a feeling of desperation, of wanting him to come and rescue me from the situation I found myself in at that time. My mom had got remarried to a stepdad who was not the greatest character around. He would beat my mom every week, and there was lots of fighting in the house, and so I can tell many stories of watching my mom being beaten. And then my mom would get the courage to leave, and we would move to a different part of Joburg, and things would be okay for a while. And then after 2 or 3 months, the money would run out, and my stepdad would find us, and one, out of desperation, he would apologize for what he's done, and I think mostly out of desperation because there's no more food in the house, we would move back to my stepdad. Growing up in South Africa during the 80s was an interesting time because the only people I engaged with was white people, right? And the only black people that I ever engaged with were people that lived and worked in our home. And so in my home, when I grew up, there was a lady that worked in our house. She was black. She would never call me by my first name. She would call me Klein Boss because my father was the big boss. She would clean our house. She would live in a back room, and she would need to ask my parents' permission if she wanted to go out, if somebody wanted to come visit her. She was not allowed to use the same cups and cutlery as us, and so she had her own tin plate, her own tin cup, and bowl and spoon under the sink that she was allowed to use. And then any black African man I've ever engaged with as a young person was the boy, the guy that worked in our garden. I never knew his name, and it wasn't important for me to know his name. The only thing I needed to do was to give the boy his sandwiches when he worked in our garden. And so the first time I engaged with a black person my own age was in 1995. I found a lot of my stereotypes being challenged around education. There were no more stones to throw, and I had to make a commitment, and that was when I made the commitment that I would build bridges where my family once built walls. When I speak about South Africa, I always start off by saying that if you've never seen a racist, you're looking at one now. And the reason I say that, it's almost like a recovering drug addict or alcoholic. If I was a black child, I probably would have ended up as a street child. But the fact that I was white, I had an education system, I had a health system, I had a social system that looked after me and made sure that I was going to be successful because I was white. Even though I haven't beat up a black person or I haven't been directly involved with apartheid, I have to apologize. And I apologize for 2 reasons. One, for my friends, and a genuine apology that I'm sorry for what my parents have done to them, but also that I no longer have guilt and that I can be free to be a South African that I'm meant to be.
I work with Quinton, we work in the same office, and when I heard his story and I heard him apologizing to all the black people in the room about apartheid and saying how he had benefited from it, and if you hear his story, you realize he wasn't as privileged growing up, but he still acknowledges that despite the hardships, it could have been worse if I was black. And I think it's always great when people acknowledge the fact that you had a sort of preferential treatment because of your color of skin, and that while we may never want to really talk about it or acknowledge it, the fact is being black at times does come with certain challenges which other people may never really quite understand. And I'm glad at least, some people do get it, that yes, because of my color of skin I was treated better, because of my color of skin I still get treated better. Just someone who acknowledges that, at least that in the back of their head they acknowledge the fact that maybe certain people aren't where they should be, not because that they're not able to, but because they just don't have the benefit of skin color.
Once you understand that you have privilege, there's something that you need to do to overcome that. The more I engage with it, it's not so much apology, but an understanding of solidarity and how do we stand together and understand the pain that people have and create the space for people to have different views to yours, create the space for people to be angry and not be fearful of their anger, but to say that their anger is legitimate. Waking up every day in South Africa, I wake up with a sense of incredible privilege to be in this country and an incredible opportunity to build this country.